Hello, it's me again. It's Brad Rao from BradRaoMusic.com. Today we're going to be talking about some practice tips or just kind of the general way that I look at practicing and a couple pieces of advice. I'm not saying that this is the right way to practice or this is the only way to practice. This is my personal view on practicing, and this is what I do to kind of help me motivate myself and to keep me pushing forward. I have 4 talking points today. The first thing is the overall view of practicing that I take, and I imagine imagine you're in a foreign country. Let's say that you're in Spain. If you don't speak Spanish, that's going to be a problem, and you're going to need to speak Spanish just to even be able to live. Speaking Spanish is going to be a huge, important part of your life. So you're going to need to know how to speak Spanish. It's not a matter of if you want to speak Spanish. If you were thrown in Spain, you either speak Spanish or you don't live. And that's kind of how I look at music. I imagine that I am in a musical world, and everyone speaks music, and I should be expected to sight read and be able to play music and speak music just as fluently as anyone else. And that's kind of like my standard that I live on, is even being able to speak English on an average level. Can I speak music on an average level? With that kind of degree of certainty where everybody needs to speak English. If we lived in a world where you needed to play music to live, you would have to put yourself to that limit. And then, of course, there's a realization that, well, I do need to play music to live, so I should actually practice that hard. So that's just kind of a general way to motivate myself, is thinking about music in terms of living in a foreign country where people only speak music, and I have to speak music. I have to be able to answer questions and come up with sentences and phrases in music. And then a couple other follow-up talking points. I want to talk about the 10,000 hour rule. I don't like the 10,000 hour rule at all. I think that's a bunch of nonsense. People have said, oh, well, there's scientific studies, well, it makes you until you're adequate. I don't know what adequate is. What is adequate? Or until you're proficient. I don't know what proficient is. How good are you? When is it that you become proficient? And if people are going to be doing this 10,000 hour rule, eventually that's going to be the average thing. The average player is going to practice for 10,000 hours, and that's just going to make you average. You're not going to. How can you succeed in the world if you're going to be average? So if you're a really serious musician, practice until you can't practice. Practice until you literally can't stay awake. Practice until you're dead. Practice as much as you can. Forget about the 10,000 hour thing. That's just, I don't know, I guess that's a good goal. If that seems like a lot for you, then sorry, I have hit the 10,000 hour thing a long time ago, and I still have a lot to learn, and a lot of practicing, and I don't feel like I'm where I want to be, so I think that's just a distraction, and the more that people take that serious, the more that's just going to be the standard. If everyone's practicing 10,000 hours, then that's the standard, and then if you want to be above average, if you're going to succeed by being average, I don't know how, good luck with that. There's a lot of people who want to be, music is a very competitive field, and if you're going to go above and beyond, and you're going to not, 10,000 hours is going to be the new, that to me is the new average. Third point is following your curiosity. I've heard people say like, oh, I decide I want to practice this certain thing, I'm going to learn this Bach fugue, whatever it is, and every time you get to a point, you're always like, I wonder what if this was all a diminished chord? What if I took this sequence further? This reminds me of this other thing. Can I figure it out? I think you should always do that, because every time you play a piece of music, if you're going to be curious about a certain thing, every time you play it, you're going to be curious. So if you find out, oh, that doesn't work, then the curiosity's gone. Or if it works, then okay, well, I know what's over there. So it's actually taking energy away from the piece of music, taking mental focus away from what you want to do. So if you're playing a piece of music, if you're determined to play a piece, and you feel like you're getting distracted because you're focusing on something else that doesn't have to do with the piece of music directly, but is a question that every time you play that piece of music, that question comes to your mind, you should try to answer that question. Or maybe if it can't be answered, realize it can't be answered, or that you can't find an answer, but at least because that's part of learning the piece. And plus, knowing whatever it is you're going to know, I think really is going to help you grow as a musician, is going to help you take the music that you're playing and relate it to things you know before and be able to relate it to your audience. You want your music to be relatable. The last tip I want to say is practice what you love. That's kind of an obvious, dumb, cliche thing, but a lot of people practice things because they want to reach a certain point. You should really, if you love the piece of music that you're going to play, it doesn't seem like practicing, and you will learn it a lot faster. You'll memorize it a lot faster than something you don't like. If you don't love it, it really doesn't work. I've had a lot of issues working with other musicians, because if I don't really love what I'm doing, it tends to not be, so great, and that's at no fault. Maybe that's my own fault, or that's at no, but if I love what I'm doing, I can learn things really quickly, and if I don't love what I'm doing, it's going to take forever. So if you're going to work on something, make sure that it's something that you really love and not something that you're doing just to prove to yourself. I want to learn this fugue because it's the hardest one. But do you even love it? Would you even play it? Do you enjoy other people listening to, other people playing it? Because if you do, then of course, if you don't, that's going to just really detract from your playing and from your life and from your goals and from the energy you put into music, and you're going to become like this heartless robot. You're going to become exactly what you hate. Musicians, we want to be expressive people. We don't want to be robots programmed to play perfectly. So find something that you really love and look on that. A supplemental thing I wanted to say is that really trying to find a teacher is going to help you. You can't solve your own problems with a mind that creates its own problems. Mitch Hedberg, the great comedian, says, I tried to teach myself guitar, but it didn't work because I didn't know how to play. I would have never went to me. And of course, Mitch Hedberg's a very funny comedian, but that's actually a really good point. If the things that you really need to work on, your blind spots, we all have blind spots. You're not going to be able to see your own blind spots yourself. You need someone else to point them out. And if you really are a serious musician, I think that finding a serious teacher, I've taken lots of lessons with lots of people, and I've found that if you can find the right teacher, one lesson with a good teacher is worth more than 100 lessons with a mediocre teacher. Not even just a mediocre teacher, but someone who's going to give you exactly what you want. You want to make sure that if you're a metal guitar player, don't take lessons from me. I don't play metal guitar that well. I could show you a few Metallica riffs and get you to a point, and I could show you some modes, but you want to find someone who really excels and who really loves what you're doing, and someone who's going to be able to point out your blind spots and call you out on the things that you need to work on. So those are just some practice ideas. Again, this isn't the right or wrong. I don't know what's right or wrong, but these are things that I use that motivate me, and maybe they could help you. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks.